Ayo, this is T.O.T. Thank you for dropping in today, if you have. We are now officially in 3.x era of patches, and with the more recent Apocalyptic Shadow that showed up, there were a decent number of players who ended up struggling with this. Some players cleared it just fine. I'm going to try to provide a little bit of advice, something that might be able to help out certain players if they do come across this video, just in case if they're a little bit concerned for the scaling of the content going forward for the next couple of patches. So one of the things that older players have gotten access to is a lot of these relic fragments. We were able to get 400 from like plus 15s that was just laying around. I had like a lot of them. Originally, when I took the screenshot, I had like 16K. And I think after I broke down more that I didn't need because I was just trying to hold on to them a little bit longer, I ended up with like 10K more. So I think I was able to make like 250 relics of whatever I wanted to make. So the question is if you do end up with a bunch of relic fragments, what is the approach that should be taken with this? In my opinion, this is a good opportunity to speed tune your DPSs, or at least some of them. And it's also an opportunity to try to increase the crit value of said DPS. If you don't have to worry about that, then the next step is going to be to speed tune some of your supports, because speed tuning in this game can be a very time costing manner. Yes, getting speed on any random piece is not that big of a deal, but getting speed on quality pieces where the other substats are going to be useful as well, that's a lot more difficult. So for your DPSs, most DPSs in the game are going to prefer having speed over like an attack boots or an HP boots or defense boots, whatever the case may be, right? And you would ideally want to try to get them to like 135 or 134 speed, right? And as far as the crit value goes, if you've noticed that you miss a lot of crits in your gameplay, then it's an opportunity to try to increase your crit rate some. If you're somebody on the other hand that does have really high crit rate, but your crit damage is kind of on the lower end, maybe an opportunity to kind of squeeze out a little bit more crit damage. So there should be a speed chart that I'm going to have a screenshot for up here. If you would like, you can take a screenshot of this. I did get permission from Elvera. Shout out to Elvera, by the way. And if I am butchering your name, I am so sorry. I know you will cook me on Discord, so I apologize in advance. With that being said, I have referenced this a whole lot. I still use this to this day. This was made long before Aggie was released, so unfortunately it doesn't have the speed values that go up in the 300x range or anything like that, because Aggie is currently the only character who can hit that type of speed levels. So if this does get modified later on in the future, I'll provide like an updated speed chart from Elvera in a future video. So while on the one hand you may not be able to manipulate the modifiers of characters, you could at least put some of your characters in a position to where they're able to attack more frequently, because in general attacking more frequently leads to higher energy gains, which leads to faster target breaking, which should in general lead to a higher DPS overall. Now of course there are going to be some exceptions. There are certain characters in this game to where they can use attack boots. Characters like Clara, Young Lee, or Jade, they are able to stick with attack boots, but that's because Jade siphons her attack frequency off of whoever she does debt collector to, and then Young Lee and Clara, these are counter based characters, so their mileage comes from obviously enemies attacking them. So the more aggressive enemies are, the better they will typically perform. All right, so the next thing that I'll go ahead and bring up is going to be general account coverage, right? So if you're in that struggle period and you're just off that precipice of the 3 stars, or you're barely getting that 3 stars, your elemental coverage is going to still matter to a pretty good amount. So one of the ways that you have 2 ways of really addressing this: either A, you can eventually get a DPS of every single element, or on the other hand, you can consider getting certain characters that will either allow you to implant a weakness, or they will allow your DPS to do toughness breaking regardless of the element. So characters that fulfill this role are going to be Silver Wolf, Boot Hill, Sam, and Fugue currently. If you do have these kind of characters, these are going to allow you to not only have lower elemental coverage, but they are also going to give you the opportunity to vertical invest into your account sooner in comparison to the player who does not go out of their way to get any of these characters. So there is a trade-off, but this should help take a little bit of pressure off of you having to worry about having full-blown elemental coverage. So while I am on the topic of elemental coverage, this is going to kind of bleed over into the next point: putting too many of your eggs in a single basket. I'm going to go ahead and use my homie John here as an example. So he has Genuine, Kafka, and Akron on his account currently, all lightning DPS characters. He also has the intention on getting Aggie on a rerun. Keep in mind, he is currently 3-starring all of the game content. However, if you are the type of player who is in a similar situation to John, to where you have numerous characters of the same element, but the difference is you aren't able to get 3-star in all of the content. You may consider diversifying your elemental coverage more. So when the next lightning DPS comes up, you may just have to make that decision and just say, hey, I've already got enough lightning coverage. I'm going to go for a character of a different element. If you are 3-starring all the content, at that point in time, every character that you get becomes a luxury pool. So that's going to be more on the horizontal side. But what about vertical sided investment? So there are a few metrics that you could use to help narrow things down for you when it comes to that. One of the metrics that you could use is vertical invest into your favorite characters first. But let's say hypothetically you like everyone equally, or you don't have any kind of biases toward one character or another. So what's the next metric that you could use? The next metric that you could use is invest in the characters that you're using the most. I'm going to use my account as an example. So from 2.0 to 2.7, I ran a character usage percentage for my account, and Ron May ended up being used a whopping 23 times across Memory of Chaos, Pure Fiction, and Apocalyptic Shadow. I don't currently have Ron May's signature light cone, so it would be a good investment for me to pick up her light cone at some point in the future. Let me give an example on the other extreme end of the totem pole, Fei Xiao. So Fei Xiao is one of our more recent 5-star DPS characters that got added into the game, and I don't use her that often, and there's a multitude of reasons behind that. I don't have Robin, I don't have Fei Xiao's signature light cone either, and also my relic quality build on Fei Xiao isn't really that great either. I have tried to work on it, but I'm just kind of hitting a brick wall for right now. I'm sure I can improve it over time though. The most major thing is that I'm not really too big of a fan of hunt characters playstyle, just being straight up single target. I do prefer pulling for a DPS that has more AoE coverage or full blown AoE coverage, if anything. I ultimately went after Fei Xiao because I was like, hey, I've got some resources, might as well try. And I ended up doing a YOLO and got her in like 50 pools. I don't have any regrets picking up Fei Xiao because I did have no premium single target coverage on my account. I do like her animations. I do like her, how she was portrayed in the storyline, and I'll probably still use her periodically from time to time if I am able to. Her technique is actually really good for clearing like the adventure challenges, like collecting the trotters and knocking them all out, or doing the break the objects challenge. She's super great for that. Some players have often coined Honkai Star Rail as Honkai Support Rail. Now, if you're an individual who has looked up YouTube videos at any point in time, you'll notice a very common trend that most of these parties, with the exception of an Acheron team, has a Harmony character. These Harmony characters tend to be the backbone of why a lot of these teams are able to do the amount of damage that they're able to do and push the DPS to a whole nother level. With that being said, resources are always going to be finite, and you may not be able to pick up every single Harmony character. So if you can only pick 1 or 2 Harmony characters, what direction should you probably go? This is honestly really easy to answer. It's honestly going to come down to how you gravitate in your pools when it comes to DPS characters. If, for example, you're pulling a variety of DPS archetypes, like let's say you pulled like a super break character or a regular break character, you're pulling characters that may scale off of attack, but then you also got in a character that damage scales off of their HP, and you have another damage dealer that scales off of defense. Pulling a more generalist buffer, such as a Ron May archetype, would probably do your account a lot of good because that character has a very good chance of just being plug and play, regardless of what you like to pull for. Let me use an example on the other extreme. Let's just say hypothetically you are the kind of player who is locked in. You know there's a particular archetype that you like to play into because that's just your favorite. You don't care about anything else. Let's use high frequency attack teams / follow-up teams, for example. Robin would be a really good pick for that account for most characters, assuming that their damage scales off of attack. Let's use another example. Let's say you are somebody who loves hyper carry. You love to funnel everything into a single character, and you just like to see that character just pop off. A character like Sunday, for example, or Sparkle to a lesser extent, could be really good for that particular hyper carry. These are just examples. The Harmony character that you pull should have some synergy with your account. If you're somebody who pulls a lot of different variety, go for a more generalist character. Otherwise, you can go for a more niche support since you are playing to that niche more often. Niche is not bad. General isn't bad. Everything is going to be based on your own personal account status. So for preservation characters, they're going to be pretty straightforward. Aventurine, he provides a shield for everyone in the team, even for memo sprites, and for the most part, he is able to do his job very comfortably. The only way that Aventurine is ever really going to get in a situation that might not be very adventurous for him would be if there ends up being a new target in the future who could automatically remove shields. Fu Xuan, on the other hand, she has one major drawback, and that is absorbing too high of team-wide AoE damage. damage. This weakness has been very apparent in the Simulated Universe DLC modes on higher difficulties, but this may also be a thing in Memory of Chaos and Apocalyptic Shadow when it comes to full team-wide attacks, if there's like a remembrance character in the team, if not more. All that AoE damage could lead Fu Xuan to dying out quicker. And then finally, I'm going to briefly talk about abundance characters. So the way that an abundance character heals might be important depending on your account and what you personally prefer. So that's broken up into a couple of different categories. For starters, you got your active healing, which your abundance character heals when they use their skill, their ultimate. Straightforward. Passive healing is basically whenever your character's turn starts, they heal automatically. You have reactive or conditional healing, which means that whenever one of your party members' HPs drop below a certain percentage, the abundance character will automatically heal them in one way or another. So think of Lingsha's Bunny or Locha's automatic heal that has like a 2-turn cooldown. The final type of healing is proactive healing, and this is essentially something that will happen whenever one of your allies attacks the enemy. They will automatically heal. Currently in the game, I believe Gallagher and Locha are the only 2 characters that have this proactive healing function in their kit. So when I was breaking down, I was looking at the abundance characters that I use, Lynx, Natasha, and Gallagher. Gallagher had the highest number usage of 17. It far trumped Natasha and it far trumped Lynx even more. So I've only used Lynx twice up to this point, I believe. And I think the big thing that was a turnoff for me when it came to Lynx is, at least from what I've personally experienced, Lynx's raw healing is on the weaker end. It just doesn't seem to be very strong, at least not in my context anyways. And I'm also not a fan of the fact that she can only remove a debuff through her ultimate. If one of my characters, for example, are getting hit with multiple debuffs, she might not be able to cleanse the one that I need to have removed the most. So Mr. Gallagher does have proactive healing. Him and Locha are those 2 characters that do have that type of healing. I like this healing quite a bit because most characters that I play do actively engage with the enemy by attacking them in some way, shape, or form. Now, the only characters who aren't really going to benefit from proactive healing very much are going to be characters who don't engage with the enemy that often. These are normally going to be like your harmony buffer archetypes, like your Bronias, your Sundays, your Sparkles, your Robins. These are characters that aren't going to attack the enemy that often. So if these are the kind of harmony characters that you tend to gravitate toward, you may consider picking up an abundance character that doesn't have such a high focus on proactive healing, unlike a Gallagher or a Locha, for example. Just my opinion. So I'll say the last 2 things that I could bring up would be to be willing to look up content from other CCs when it comes to clearing content. After I've gotten my 3-star in Apocalyptic Shadow, Memories of Chaos, or Pure Fiction, I have a tendency of going to YouTube and looking up other individuals clearing the same content. Sometimes seeing how other people approach the content will give me ideals on how I can progress my account moving forward. Beyond all else, because Honkai Star Rail allows you to approach the content with different team comps and whatnot, I get to see how other characters perform in this very same kind of scenario. So I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. The last and final thing, if nothing else has been of any value to you, what I would recommend doing, if possible, is to record your own gameplay. It's very easy to be locked in the moment and you're playing and you're thinking you're doing everything correct, but after you go back and you review your recordings, you may start to see misplays and things that you made mistakes on, things that you could have tweaked, things that could have been better, and those things could have been the difference between you getting a 10 cycle and an 11 cycle, for example. Sometimes you can be your own best teacher. When I was in high school and I was playing US football, for example, we would often watch film on the opposing team. We would watch their offense, watch their defense, and come up with measures to counter them. If it was after a Friday night game, we would watch film on ourselves as well, and the coaches would point out what we did right and what we did wrong. This has kind of just been ingrained in me from high school. I like to record my own gameplay so that way I can review it and so that way I can make myself a better player. This may not work for you, but it has worked for me to a pretty decent extent. Anyways, just want to say thank you so much for your time. If you've watched this, you be safe out there. Deuces.
This combat needs up. This is double speed. Happy New Year!
I weep for the departed. It is my fault.